So welcome everybody to the interagency briefing on the effects of escalating construction costs and on budget, procurement, and quality. All those things being affected, right, Mr. Mark?
Yes, sir.
We have with us Mark Luria. He's with Hanscom Consulting, just out of Northern Virginia, right? In Alexandria, or where are you?
Old Town Alexandria. Yep.
Old Town Alexandria. Awesome. Welcome. It's finally broke a little bit of the weather. It has been insane here the past few days, so I think we're in pretty good shape now, right? So
nice.
welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mark. We also want to welcome all the folks that are joining us today. We have folks coming in from the Army Corps of Engineers, FAA, ICE, GSA, VA, NAVFAC, NASA. We have a couple folks from Aberdeen Proving Grounds. That's awesome. That's not too far from where I am most of the time. Department of Energy. We have Department of Labor, well as Army, Department of State, a couple folks from there. Naval Nuclear Laboratory, that was a new one the last time, and then we have a couple people here again from there. So, and folks from the Navy, we do want to welcome you for being here. We know there's places that you can go and other things that you can do, but we do appreciate you being here with us today. A quick disclaimer, this event is not affiliated with or endorsed by any agency and is provided to you, the audience, for information purposes only. And all participation in this briefing is voluntary, and engagement by you, government personnel, is not an indication or endorsement of or commitment to purchase from any vendor. Whew, that's a lot. But the real thing about that is so that we can create dialogue and we can absolutely help you answer questions, and that way there isn't any obligations, right? So there you go. So if you have questions, open that panel up. You'll see the little arrow on the upper right-hand side. You can open that up. You can text us questions that we will be working throughout the presentation. You'll be able to engage us, and especially Mark, since he's the subject matter expert. You can also raise your hand. That's what that little icon is with the hand with the arrow. You can raise your hands, and we can engage you that way. And if you dialed in on the phone, we have several folks that had to dial in on the phone because Citrix doesn't work for everybody. And I shot that out to everyone earlier, made sure you had the presentation itself so that you can follow along. So if you dialed in, make sure you enter your audio pin so we can unmute you there. And if you'd like to engage us, you can send it to support at govbrief.us or govsupport at Hanscom Consult. No ing or s, right, Mark?
Correct.
It's Hanscom Consult, so you can do that. And if you like the way that Mark looks today, you can make in that fancy new office he has. That's a brand new office. I was in it not too long ago. Very nice down there. If you like the way he looks, you can make him bigger. You can drag the little bar. It might be on the bottom or the top, and you can make us both look a little bigger, or you can make us disappear altogether if you don't like the way we look today. So we're going to, for the agenda for today, we'll go over about Hanscom, what Hanscom does, and your qualifications in the marketplace. FAR language. There's some interesting things about the FAR language that incorporates what we're talking about today. We also have market influences impacting the project costs. Big problems with a lot of different agencies and the impact on procurement. And as we have a very robust commercial market, as well as the impact on quality. And we'll talk about how you can minimize those impact with some of the recommendations for you today. And we do have a few polls. So if you can join in on this so we can make sure we hit what you would like to do. So why are you here? Do you want to learn more about what is happening, about the impact of the escalating costs? Do you have cost issues on a project? You want to learn how to mitigate those cost escalations on the impact on those cost escalations, or you want an excuse to just get out of another meeting? So that's also a great reason to be here, is just because it's better than being someplace else. So let us know what you got here, and we'll make sure we'll incorporate you. So we have 71% voted so far. So if we get a couple more, that'd be great. We'll give you another 5, 4, 3, 2. You can do it. I promise. It's not painful. 3, 2, 1, and there. Boom. All right. So here's why people are here, Mark. So we have learned the impact on escalating costs and mitigating the impact of those costs. And some folks have cost issues as we speak, which is not uncommon, right?
Absolutely.
So Tell us a little bit about Hanscom. You guys have been involved in the government for a while, but let's talk. Let's give you the background on how you guys got started and what you're up to.
Great. Thanks, Dave. Hanscom is a cost and project management firm based in Alexandria with offices in the district, New York, and Colorado. The three principals have been in business, and this is a little telling for some of us guys with gray hair. We have almost 100 years of collective experience just in the ranks of the principals. Basically, our four major service categories include cost management, construction and project management. We have a pretty robust business these days in change order support and change order analysis, and we have a service that is called facility condition assessment. We work with clients including several agencies within the federal and Department of Defense, including State Department, Parks and Rec, et cetera. And we are a GSA schedule holder and a small business.
And that's a beautiful thing in this market. And you guys are not too far. You have your offices in the district as well as where you are in Old Town Alexandria. And a lot of what we're talking about, we were just discussing this beforehand. This is kind of what you try to do to anticipate the costs, and the government requires the government has to have construction costs prepared and furnished to the contracting officer at the earliest practicable time for each proposed contract, and that shall be prepared in as much detail with a third party. Is that right?
Yes.
So, and that's one of the things that's one of the reasons why you're actually in business. And another reason that you guys are connected is of your involvement in the GSA P120. If you look at GSA PBS's documentation for GSA P120, they're going to find Hanscom as one of the contributors for that, right?
Yes.
And that was back in July 2007. It's guidance for qualification and ethics. A lot of different details that are revolve in that document. Recommend that everybody reach out for that. In fact, we'll supply that as part of the follow-up. We'll give you a copy of that as well. So what is your biggest issue with escalating construction costs? There are a few here that we have called out. How about anticipate? Is it anticipating those costs now? Is it vetting the pricing? Because that's one of the areas, Mark, we were talking about that earlier, about just being able to find folks and being able to identify where those prices are reasonable. Getting bids. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. The impact on the budget or the impact on quality. You can choose as many as you want within this. And we'll make sure that you get this included. And with that, we'll give you another 5 seconds. You can respond, and we'll make sure you get information on this as well. This is good stuff. 3, 2, 1, and you can do it. I promise. A couple stragglers out there. All right. So this is where everybody stands right now with this. Everybody's having trouble with cost escalation and anticipating those costs and getting bids. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but we appreciate you guys responding on that as well. So let's talk about the market influences. Mark, give us an overview of what this slide means.
Well, as most of the participants, Dave, have identified, they're having trouble with price. What we're seeing in the market here as evidenced here by a graph from Construction Analytics, prices are approaching the 2005, 2004, 2005 mark. We're definitely up on the upswing, and we don't see a change from that trend. So we're definitely trending upward.
So we all know that in 2008, everything pretty much took a nosedive in all construction costs, right? So this recovery that we're in, both in the commercial, and this also affects the government as well, right?
Absolutely. One of the effects of this, Dave, also is that we've, in the 2009, 2010, 2011 range, a lot of the subcontractors left the market. some of you are aware of some of the larger subs that have gone out. But what happened then is ranks thinned out, and as work has increased, prices have gone up, but we have less subcontractors in the market to actually price the work. So this is one of the features we're finding now.
And so some of the other influences that you see, take us through this.
Well, we're seeing currently, and to many project managers' surprise, bids are coming in as much as 20, maybe even 25% higher, especially on smaller projects. We're having difficulty getting a number of bidders and bid coverage. It's a busy market, so we're seeing less qualified subs in general, or a fewer number of qualified subs bidding the work, which affects the price, availability, of course, the schedule of the start of the project, and the ability to perform. It also is affecting quality, which is something we want to talk about. This is affecting, of course, all of the stakeholders in the project and causing some delays.
And that gets to a lot of frustration with everybody across the board. As
Absolutely.
you said here, all the stakeholders get frustrated with that. So there are challenges, obviously, and that's why we're here. So this is from a competitive to a non-competitive in a very, very short period of time. Tell us how you are working through that.
Well, I think one of the things that project managers have to do, of all the variables we have to try to keep control of during our design development and construction execution phases, we've got to anticipate a robust amount of escalation, a robust amount of pricing pressure from the market. If we arrive at a budget that is reasonable to begin with, and is more real, then we don't have bids that come in over budget. But we have to be able to anticipate these things, ensure our budgets are sufficient in order to avoid delays and having to go through price reduction exercises. And everybody is aware that there are other pricing pressures in the market as well, including tariffs, which are on the horizon, and we don't actually know what the effect is going to be, but we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. And so walk us through this. There's a couple of key factors and key points that you want to pull out here.
Yeah. According to Construction Analytics, which is a great resource for most people who are interested in some more information, the total construction costs are typically increasing more than just labor and material escalation. So we really have to be aware that there are more factors than just labor and material escalation. Those include a higher escalation than normal. In fact, according to Construction Analytics, we're seeing, and some of the bids we're seeing, escalation on an annual basis of 4 to 5%, and that is just pricing increases from one year to the next, where we normally see in more normal years a 2.5 to 3.5% annual escalation. In addition to that escalation, we have to account for tariff impact and the effects of a diminished pool of subcontractors, qualified subcontractors to bid work. So all of these factors are adding to what is normally what are normal costs usually we see in budgeting and estimating.
And this is one of the key factors is the number of bids, and you can look at this. Tell us how this graph works as far as the multiplier. So
on the left side, you see a bid factor. What we're aiming for here is a bid factor of 1. This is information that was collected and disseminated through the Corps of Engineers. What we're seeing is that in order to achieve a bid factor of about 1, which means no premium on the bids is somewhere between 5 and 6 bids per bid package. And what we're seeing these days is somewhere between the 1 and 3 range, which of course is driving our costs, and we're seeing premiums on subcontracting costs of around 15 to 20%. So we encourage project managers and program managers to push construction managers and general contractors to do their homework and get the number of bid coverage that that increases competition.
And you mentioned this too. You're talking about less qualified subcontractors, which creates multiple problems, right?
Yeah, some of the impacts on quality that we're seeing is that, as we talked about before, the number of subcontractors in the market diminished in the 04-05 range, and as work is increasing, we're seeing less qualified subcontractors who are actually have capacity to do all the volume of work that's out there. As a result, manpower is stretched, material and equipment are affected in terms of their manufacturing and fabrication, and so sometimes we have to give ourselves a little bit longer lead time for some of the material. And of course, one of the things that suffers in the end is the emphasis on quality. We want to make sure that subcontractors are performing work in accordance with the specifications and also to a level of quality that's required.
Very, very important. Very tough to be able to manage across the board. So minimizing that impact, what are some of the ideas that you come across with?
Well, I think the first and foremost thing is that we want to make sure that you have the right budget, reflect the scope, the quality and performance escalation expectations you have, understand the escalation and contingencies, risks, carry the factors that you need in your budget so that when the bids come in, you are prepared for this higher than normal pricing exercise. Avoid what is the easy way out and providing a budget or an estimate that is just matches your budget. So we want to try to set a good budget, and usually if we set a good budget, then our bids come in, in accordance with that and minimize delay. If at all possible, the second factor is really we'd like to see a more complete set of documents. Architects and engineers are being pushed to a point where they are producing documents in a fast and busy market. So we want to minimize the aftermarket pricing for change orders and try to get all the scope priced in a competitive environment.
Absolutely. And efficiency is huge too.
Yeah.
On the procurement side, which delays then impact. It's like a multiplying effect once you have delays in the procurement. If there's problems with the efficiency, let's go into this for a little bit because a lot of folks here are in procurement. Let's go through that.
Right. So once your documents are complete, make your CMs, your CM at risk, and your GCs do their homework. Don't accept 1 to 2 bids. Make them go out and find more bidders. That's what you're paying them for. That's why you're paying them the 2 to 3% make them do their homework. And by not creating churn during the procurement process, adding addendums and so forth during the bidding process, go out with a clean set of documents as complete as possible, get the numbers in, vet the numbers, and try to close the deal as quickly as possible. The more you churn, the more you're going to lose bidders, and your initial field of 5 to 6 to 7 or 8 bidders actually becomes 2 or 3. And so we want to try to maximize the procurement efficiency. We think that program and project managers ought to stress that when they hire CMs. Um, yeah,
One
go
of the
ahead.
biggest pieces here revolves around, and we talked about this, is that if it doesn't match the budget or something is impacting the budget, going back to do VE in this bullet here is value engineering, right?
Yeah, oftentimes if the bids come in, the pricing comes in higher than your budget, we're left with not many other options than to
Mm-hmm.
value engineer or reduce scope in order to get ourselves back in budget. This results can actually end up costing you more because the escalation factors at a cumulative 6 to 7%,
Mm-hmm.
including all the factors we talked about, um, actually negate the 3 to 4% that you're saving in VE or
Mm-hmm.
scope reduction. So be aware of that. Set the budget right. Try to minimize delays during pre-construction, if at all possible. And if you need to go through VE and scope reduction, um, don't let it linger. Try to get to the meat of the matter and create a bid addendum as quickly as possible. But the longer you draw it out, the more it's going to cost. And I
And
think lastly,
yeah,
we want to encourage that you involve third-party professionals, um, people who are see bids and see pricing and estimating and budgeting every day. At Hanscom, we have somewhere between 15 and 20 projects at any one given time that are going through our estimating department. So we're very used to seeing market conditions.
and I think one of the key pieces is oftentimes when it doesn't match the budget, that second bullet point in minimizing those delays, just the time it takes to do the changes, like you said, mitigates or actually costs more once you make the changes, because you may save 3%, but it costs you 6 or 7% in the escalation. And you're
That's
seeing that
right.
on a regular basis, right? This isn't just government either, right?
We're seeing it across the board
Yeah,
in private as well.
and
Yeah.
private as well. Excellent. So we're going to get some questions in just a minute. We already have a few of them here, so we will do that. But I do want to know what you need help with. Is it updating a current project budget? Is it getting accurate cost estimates for a new project? Is it making sure I'm compliant with the FAR and GSA regulations, or something else? Please contact me. We have a lot of folks looking at new projects right now, and we can answer some questions about how you can work through current projects too, if you have some. So we give you another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and good deal. We only had a few people respond to this one, but we got 2/3 getting accurate cost estimates on a new project and making sure that you're compliant. Love it. We'll make sure we do that. So we do have a couple of questions here, and let me get to this real quick, and I will provide that for you. Get my spectacles on. Um, Lane asked this question with Aberdeen Proving Grounds. He says, how much of the 6% escalation is due to tariffs?
Uh, Lane, I can try to answer that as best as I can. I'm not really sure that we can be as accurate as you'd like, but according to Construction Analytics, the tariffs will affect materials differently. Certain materials like lumber, we're not seeing actually any escalation at all. In some cases, a price drop.
Mm.
But certainly any products involving metals or steel, we're seeing some price escalation there more than normal. In some cases, up to 7% for structural iron. So the net cumulative effect would probably be across the board be somewhere in the 1.5 to 2% range.
Great. All right. You can let us know if you have any more questions. Okay, let me see this one. Will the presentation be made available? Yes, we will get a copy of the presentation out, and any of the answers for the Q&A will be incorporated in that. how do you handle adjustments to current projects? That's a wild one. Love that.
Yeah. Um, well, projects that have been budgeted already, oftentimes, particularly in government, projects are budgeted several years before they actually are executed.
Mm-hmm.
And so the challenge is seeing into the future. We can't always do that. And when we carry these factors, sometimes it prices us right out of a project. So it's a delicate balance. How do we deal with current projects? We really have to look at, at what the budget is, or what the budget was set at, and try to make adjustments in accordance with today's market. I think that's the best I can answer.
Yeah, and you have to look at it individually, of course, but a lot of the projects that you're seeing being worked on right now were actually budgeted 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Yes.
And that was at the bottom end of that curve that you had, and it's a 75% difference is what you had, right?
Right.
It makes it super challenging, and it's not your fault. It's the market impacts, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of the double-edged sword, Dave, because everybody likes to be in a good economy and wants money flow and business to stimulate the economy. But the reality is that the compounding effects of a good market diminish the amount of subcontractors and bid coverage,
Mm-hmm.
and that ends up pushing your pricing up even further,
Mm-hmm.
which then pushes escalation up even further.
Yep. Yeah, it is definitely one of the most challenging times to be in construction and maintain budgets. So we appreciate that. So if you have any more questions, we'll be glad to answer those. But this is one thing we like to do is just helping you stay out of hot water is being realistic, right? It's hard. It's hard when you have these fluctuations to understand what realistic is, first of all. But you need to build in the escalations into those budgets, right?
Yes.
Yep. And engaging those third party professionals early, you need to do it for the FAR anyway, for making sure that your pricing is according to what it should be. And when you do that, if you engage folks like Hanscom, that's what you do every day. You're looking at it realistically, and looking for folks that are on your that understand the GSA P120, which you guys do, making sure that your construction management folks know about that, as well as your experienced folks on PSS schedules. 871-7 is the primary category for you, and that's what you have, right, Mark?
Yes.
That's what you guys have. And once you start to do your due diligence on folks, just make sure that you're validating their credentials, especially the certifications, and expanding your base with new folks. If you haven't worked with somebody that has new technology, that can help, as well as establishing and using BPAs, especially for these third parties. If you're doing this on a regular basis in your construction outfit, it is a way to be able to get to your vendors faster, which saves money in the end, because it gives you the access to these folks and reduces your procurement time. And if you would like to engage Hanscom or learn more about Hanscom, they are small business, as you mentioned earlier, Mark. There's your DUNS, your CAGE, your GSA schedule holder information. And if you need to engage, if you have to need help in a particular socioeconomic category, Hanscom has partners either with 8A, HubZone, veteran-owned as well as woman-owned. So you guys can help cover all the gambit of that. On all those fronts. So, and with that, with your follow-up, you get a copy of the presentation, the Q&A, some supporting documents, including that P150 we were talking about earlier, and Hanscom capabilities and procurement options, as well as additional documentation that you request. If there's anything that you need, we will be able to get that to you. And we do appreciate you guys being here today. If you want to reach out to Mark directly, here's his information, including his email address and direct phone number, I do believe. Isn't that right, Mark?
It is. Yes.
Awesome. And so, and if you need to reach out to me for briefing information, you can reach out directly to me as well. Any parting information that you would like to give everybody before we let them go?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for joining the webinar. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, Dave, about it. And it's a challenging time for everyone. You know, my biggest advice is really build your budget accordingly, anticipate the escalation factors that are higher now than they've ever been or have been in a while, and keep your documents clean and your procurement time short, and make your CMs do their homework.
All good advice. All good advice. Appreciate that. And we appreciate, as Mark said, we do appreciate you being here. If you need any additional information, please feel free to reach out to us directly. And besides that, enjoy the rest of the summer. It finally cooled off around here, which we are very grateful for, because it was crazy hot there for a little bit. So, but enjoy your time. Thanks for joining us, guys. If you need anything, please feel free to reach out. Appreciate it. Thanks much.